my claim. You put in work and just wait and let it all unfold. Straight from the soul, now I stick to my goal.
Welcome everyone to a very special edition of Unrooted Baseball Edition. This is the playoff episode, the final one of the year. And so my guest for this week's show is none other than the head coach of Menlo College Baseball, Jake McKinley. Jake, thanks for joining me again.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. And let's start by kind of recapping the season a little bit. And to say it was a roller coaster of a season is kind of a bit of an understatement. Let's start with the highs. Menlo opened the season with a loss to Corbin, but then you guys rattled off 13 games in a row where you won all 13 after losing that opener. It was the best start in program history. What was that experience like?
There was definitely some highs in there. We had some wins that were maybe a little bit unlikely. You know, some pinch hit home runs late in games. We had some guys step up in some big performances. But even the loss to Corbin was an exciting one. I think we scored 6 runs in the first inning of the game and hit a grand slam in the first inning of the game. I've never been a part of anything like that. So I would say during that time there was a lot of good moments. There's been good moments all year, but that was an exciting way to start the year. I mean, it's always nice when you play well early because you give yourself a chance. It's an entire body of work, and the guys they did a good job all year, but especially then we were playing very well.
Now the grind of a full season is always difficult. How do you as a coach try to keep everybody focused, and how do your coaching tactics change as the season wears on?
I think the most important thing is through the entire season you have ups, you have downs, you have injuries. Guys have regular lives outside of baseball, and getting to the point where you can focus on just being the best version of yourself on the next pitch of the game. It's a very, very hard thing to do. I think especially for young athletes and amateur athletes, it's very difficult because you're balancing so many different things in your life, and our guys have done a really good job of that. So that's the biggest message. I mean, I think we're kidding ourselves if you say that a playoff game is just like any other game. I don't think that's necessarily true. There's a different atmosphere and a different intensity to it, but I think at the same time you got to do your best to lock in on the next pitch and just compete the best you can. That's all you can ever ask of a player. So as a coach, I try to remind them that's all I'll ever ask of them is just approach the next pitch with your best effort and your best attitude, and the outcome will take care of itself.
That message seemed to be hitting home pretty early in the season. The Oaks were ranked as high as 6th in the coaches' polls early. It was the highest Menlo has ever been ranked. They eventually fell down to 9th and then out of the polls completely. You guys made the fall from 9 to not even receiving votes. It was an oddity given that most teams that they'll have a gradual slide. Was that a shock or any kind of effect to the team?
I mean, I think it comes down to your motivation of why you do what you do. I didn't get into coaching to have an NAI ranking, and I don't think that players play baseball for that stuff. I mean, there's a degree of it that it's a reflection of your program, but the NAI is comprised of small colleges across the board and some limitations and resources. So, I think it's easy for a voter, perhaps in the Midwest or in the southern part of the country, to look at box scores and make assumptions, and that's fine. That's just the reality of the situation. So for me personally, it doesn't matter. That's not what motivates me in the morning to be a coach. It's the opportunity to help guys get better and become the best versions of themselves, and I think for the most part, we're pretty aligned like that as a group of players and coaches. So I'm sure that for the players there's a degree of it where you're like, what the heck, but it's irrelevant because we have played well enough to play past the regular season, and everyone is 0-0 and nobody has a batting average or an ERA. So you coach the best you can, recruit the best players you can, and try to help out your guys and hope they play well at the right time. So the rankings for me, I think the system is potentially flawed as it is, and it doesn't. I haven't lost any sleep over it.
And you could make that same argument for the other teams in the conference as well. Teams like the Masters and Hope, they're winning games late in the season, and they're not even pushing into the top 25.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the thing. I feel like our conference this year is as competitive as it ever has been, because everybody has a number one arm that can beat anybody on any given day, and that's 1 through 9 in the conference. The conference is loaded with good players, and I think this year it was a little more balanced than it has been in the past. I think Westmont won the conference last year, and they went 25-5 or 24-6, and that just wasn't going to happen this year. Speaking of Westmont, they're not in the tournament, and they're as talented as anybody in our conference. They had really good players, so there was never an easy game in the conference, and anybody could beat anybody. So again, you don't wake up in the morning saying, like, I hope some dude votes for us in this poll that's never seen us play. I think your value as a team is internal, and only the body of work that you put in and your dedication to getting better every day and playing good baseball. And that's, if you as a team can look at it and say, we did what we were supposed to do from an attitude, effort, work ethic standpoint, then, I think that's all you can really ever ask for. I think someone's opinion from the outside is just someone's opinion, and they're entitled to it, but it's not all that important to us.
And now you guys, you're in the playoffs, like you said, and it is a very even field, but the Oaks kind of slid a little bit at the end of the season. You guys fell out of the rankings, and it's the 4th year in a row, really, that Menlo's kind of started the season on a high. Middle of the year comes, and you kind of plateau out, and then you bottom out at the end of the year, but still get into the playoffs and then compete in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe just the grind of the season, like we talked about earlier? Is that a potential reason why this has happened, or what do you see as the coach?
I think every year is different, you know what I mean? And we're fortunate enough to be in the postseason because of, the weather was tricky out here in California, and scheduling was obviously difficult at times given, home games being away from home, which is fine. But we did, we played 20 games in 30 days in April. And we were a little bit on the thin side at times, and in that time, outcomes maybe weren't what we had always wanted, but there were still some really great things that happened. I think back of that 11-inning game at Westmont when, guys pulled through and found a way to win. There were several dates like that still in the month of April. It wasn't a great month overall. I think we were 8-12 in April. But I think we earned some tough wins in the month to give us this opportunity. So, throughout a season, you kind of have your beginning, your middle, and your end, and you hope it all blends to a point that you get to play after the season. So, I think at the end of the year, as a coach, you have to kind of fire yourself and say, okay, if I was starting, what would I do differently? But the beauty of it is the season isn't over, and we do have a chance to play still, and a lot of teams don't. So we're grateful for that. And so in terms of evaluating the regular season, it's something we'll probably do, in the off season. But right now, we're doing everything we can to prepare our players to, compete in that tournament and have a chance to win it. So, but I think there's always a lot of factors that contribute to your outcomes, and try to manage them the best you can.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with the way you guys finished the season. Even though you only had 8 wins in April, those 8 wins were playoff caliber wins. I mean, the atmosphere, the level of competition you guys were facing, those are the kind of games you're going to be seeing here in this playoff tournament. So even though you might not have won many of those games, you have experience winning those games, and so now you're better prepared for the final push.
Oh, for sure. And I think the more high intensity games you can be a part of, even if you don't come out on top, if you can learn from them and get better, it'll impact your ability to succeed in the future. So I definitely think playing like that extra inning game at Westmont, and being on the wrong end of a couple tight ones at the Masters, it still prepares you. And again, as a coach, I think when the game is over, you're going to feel a little bit of, that feeling of defeat. You're going to feel some triumph at times. And the best thing you could ever do is just kind of get back to neutral. But I try to evaluate it as like, did the players go about today with their best effort and their best attitude and did they compete at their highest level? And if the answer is yes, then I have to be a mature enough role model to say, the scoreboard's not quite as relevant as the body of work by the people, and our kids have done a super job of that.
Now last year, Menlo got into the playoffs. They were the 4th seed last year, so they had to play in the first playoff game like you guys are doing again this year. What is that early game like, and how will the experience from last year's playoff help your team this year?
I think it'll help, just having gone through it. It's tricky, to play a 9 o'clock game. I almost think we got a dress rehearsal. We played an 8 o'clock game at Biola earlier this year to try to get ahead of some weather. So I think that the players, they won't have a problem with it. And obviously, we're fortunate to be, 2 miles away from the tournament site. So from a sleep standpoint, hopefully guys, they rest up. But when the first pitch is thrown, I think both teams are going to be ready to compete, and we both have been in that early game, so you got to do the best you can to treat it like any other game. And like I said, I'm not going to say that it is. I think we're kidding ourselves if we say that, but we just gotta treat it like any other game the best we can.
Yeah. Now the Masters University swept the Oaks in April. It was in Santa Clarita. And so you guys have seen them. They've seen you. They are certainly a dangerous 4th seed. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. I think they're in the discussion as the most talented team in the conference. Them and some others. So they're tough. Their starting pitching is exceptional. They're very well coached. But, they're human. So, like anybody else. So, we're very confident. I think we have as good a starting pitching as anybody. And, offensively, we definitely can do some damage. So, throughout a playoff level baseball game, like a season, there's some big moments where you're gonna come through, and some where you're not. Again, the guys just have to be sure, just compete the best you can on the next pitch, and that's all will be asked of them.
That seems to kind of be a theme for this year's playoff bracket, with how seeds 1 through 5, everyone can just beat up on everybody. The 1 seed's just as likely to win as you guys as the 5 seed. From a coach's standpoint, how difficult does that make it to plan for the next game?
Yeah, it's tricky. It's really tricky, especially with that early game. If you're fortunate enough to come out of that, then you're facing a higher seed's number 1 arm. So, there's some inherent challenges there. There's some strategic planning that you kind of have to do, and you have to prepare for various situations, obviously. And like you said, anybody can kind of beat up on anybody. So this, along with any other playoff baseball, it really just comes down to who plays the best in the moment. A lot of times in Major League Baseball, the team that has the best record in the regular season does not win the World Series, or the team that is appearing to be the most talented team on paper does not always win their championship. So, we try to take an approach where we're not putting a lot of pressure on our guys, because when you look at the grand scheme of the program, it's to recruit the best players that we can find, help them out the best we can, help them to become better people, and you gotta hope that they play well at the right times, which is obviously going to be this weekend. But I can tell you from a personnel standpoint, I think we have the guys, personally, athletically. So, as their coach, try to make the right decisions in the right times in those games, and hope we can come out on top.
So then the last thing I got for you is, what does this team have left? What do they have for one final push to get the first GSAC title in program history?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody in the country is tired. I think everybody has some beat up bodies and some guys playing, through some injuries. I think that's just the nature of college baseball. It's a long season, and there's a lot that goes into it. And this group's been together since August. We had an entire fall season together, and then throughout the season, one of the things that's unique about this group is we've had to travel to every game, and I think that can be looked at now as an advantage. There's probably times when, one in particular I think is a trip we took to San Diego. It was supposed to be a home series here, and we went to San Diego. That's a 10-hour bus trip, and I'm 6'4". It's hard to fold myself into one of those bus rows, but So there's moments there where you're like, man, this is tough, it's uncomfortable, but I think there's a different togetherness and a camaraderie built by a team that has to go through some of that adversity. So now I look at it as an advantage that I don't think there's a situation that would be presented to the group that they would be like, we're not capable of handling this. So I think, you go through all the things you go through as a college baseball team. And then when you're in the postseason, I really think it comes down to more of a mentality, more of like a primal or instinctual ability to compete. At that point, how your swing feels is probably a little bit less relevant than your ability to just compete, get the barrel to the baseball. Or maybe, some arms are tired and, we need to probably get away from pitching mechanics and just find a way to hit the glove. And I think this group is good at that. I think they're very good at competing. So, if they compete well and, we get a couple breaks and the ball lands in the right spot, I think we could be in the thick of it. But do they have it in them? I think so. I don't think they've been together this long to, not have enough energy to get through a postseason. I think this is why you train hard every day. And they've done just that. And I also think, too, it's really, really unique is the fan base. We've traveled quite well. When we've had to go on the road, we've still had a lot of people travel with the team and a lot of fans. So I just think it's a really unique situation we're in. And, I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that it will be of our benefit in the tournament.
All right, Jake, let's get into the final segment of the show. Your last round of Brownie Bites for 2017. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Question number 1. If Menlo wins the tournament, has there been any talk about crazy things someone might do?
I don't think so. I don't think there's been talk about what we would do if we win it, because you just want to win the next game. But I'm hearing a rumor that the guys want to go Mohawks all the way throughout the team, coaches included. I'm going bald, and I don't have real thick hair, so I don't know how Mohawk would work for me. But they're telling me, and they're giving me hell, saying that I gotta do a Mohawk. So if it's for the boys, I'll do it. But it's going to take some serious creativity, I think, with this mop.
Yeah, I don't know how that would look or how exactly you would turn that into a mohawk, but we could wiggle around with it a little bit and see.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready, whatever it takes.
And Biola's got the thing going on right now where all their players are dyeing their hair blonde and they're getting mustaches. It's a little strange, I think. But
it is, and mustaches in baseball are just kind of a thing. I think it's
absolutely.
It's one of those looks where the uglier you are, the more beautiful you are. So I know in March our guys take it to another level, and you took it to another level.
I know that all too well, Jay.
If you are a single guy, you just got to be prepared to stay single till April and embrace it.
Absolutely.
Embrace the ugly.
Question number 2. How many French fries has Alexander Thompson eaten this year?
Well, ones that he got on his own, I would say it's in the hundreds, but ones that he's stolen from his teammates, you're going to have to add a comma into that digit. He's not afraid to steal food from his teammates or his coaches either.
Yeah, there's a backstory behind that. I was down with the team on that San Diego trip that you were talking about, Jake, and yes, it was a long bus ride. And of course, our first stop there, it begins to circulate that Alexander Thompson took the French fries at the restaurant we were eating at for lunch on the first stop, and then that just kind of continued to happen over the course of the season. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. And he plays the the innocent, I didn't do it role really well. He's really good at that. He's such a nice kid. So you wouldn't suspect that he would take something that doesn't belong to him. But yeah, when it comes to side dishes for the coaches, he's not afraid to swoop them, and we have to address it as needed.
Question number 3: how many minutes have you spent on the phone trying to book fields in 2017?
How many minutes? Well, I'm not quite sure. I was trying to do a comparative analysis, though. I think number of hours, same number of hours as hit by pitches on Julian Gerard and Jordan Getzelman combined.
So 28.
14 apiece, yeah.
So 28.
14 apiece. Those guys' backs look like a beautiful painting from the 1800s, which I appreciate as a coach. They don't get out of the way of pitches, and even though those guys can hit the ball a mile, they still try to get on base and have good team at bats. So that's my answer. Long story short, a lot of time on the phone, made a lot of new friends in the Bay Area, and if anyone ever has questions about how to run another facility, I'm the guy. Yeah, start with me.
Well, Jake, thanks so much for joining me on the show, and best of luck in the playoffs. So fans, all the games for the 2017 GSAC Baseball Tournament will be streamed live on the Menlo College Sports Network, and it all kickstarts with the Oaks game on Sunday morning. That's May 7th. The Oaks will not host, but they're going to host the tournament. They're playing the 4th-seeded Masters University at 9 o'clock. The game will be at Cañada College in Woodside, California. The winner of that game will move on and play at 3 o'clock on Sunday against the top-seeded Hope International Royals. The loser will play the early game on Monday, and a complete tournament headquarter page can be found on MenloAthletics.com. Well, again, best of luck in the tournament, Jake, and don't forget to tune in to all of the games live on the Menlo College Sports Network for the 2017 GSAC Baseball Tournament. That'll do it for Unrooted here in 2017. Thanks so much for tuning in all season long. I'm Brian Brownfield, and we will see you at the GSAC Baseball Tournament. Take care.
No doubt gonna lay my claim. You put in work and just wait and let it all unfold. Straight from the soul, now I stick to my goal always.